Season 5 of The Chosen is about to change everything. The first full trailer for Season 5 just dropped, and now I'm going to tell you all of the hidden details that you missed from this trailer, because this trailer is 2.5 minutes. It gives us a lot of clues for what's going to happen in this season and how the different events are going to unfold. There's a lot of big Bible moments, there's a lot of really cool kick-butt action parts, and a lot of intimate, powerful scenes that are really going to tug at our heartstrings. You're going to need a lot of tissues for this season. But hello, my name is Eli Hollingsworth, and welcome back to Against the Current, a The Chosen podcast, and let's break down this trailer for The Chosen Season 5. We kick off this trailer with Judas and Caiaphas. This is when Judas is betraying Jesus. Yes, and we kind of come in on the middle of a scene here.
I suppose I have not seen enough.
And Caiaphas hands him the 30 pieces of silver. This is going to be kind of later in the season, close to the back end of it, because we know that Season 5 is going to end with the Garden of Gethsemane, pretty much. That's what I'm thinking. And then it'll probably end with Judas coming in with the Roman guards and officials to arrest Jesus. I'm thinking that's how the season is going to end, on a bit of a cliffhanger. So it's going to be kind of unfortunate, but I'm really excited to see it. And then we get Jesus walking in the temple. He is seeing all of the corruption going on here, and he's pretty upset about it. He says,
"Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem,"
which is a direct passage from Scripture, as we can find in Matthew 23:37-39 and Luke 13:34. Then he says,
"My house shall be called a house of prayer, but you make it a den of thieves,"
which is a reference to Matthew 21:13. We see the iconic scene of Jesus overturning the tables in the temple, and this is going to be in Season 5, Episode 1, a perfect way to kick off this season. It's going to be a really cool sequence where you see this classic Bible moment here in The Chosen Season 5, and I'm super hyped to see it. This is right after the triumphal entry. Jesus is going to come into the temple, and this is going to happen here in Episode 1. It's Jedediah who says, "By what authority are you doing these things?" And Jesus says,
my own.
which is such a cool line, and it's so cool. This trailer is so cool. And the Pharisees watch Jesus flip over the tables.
Sooner or later, gotta cut you down.
Over top of this trailer, we actually have a Johnny Cash song playing, which was a huge surprise to me. And they chose Johnny Cash, "God's Gonna Cut You Down." In this song, Johnny Cash admits that he's a sinner like the rest of us, and the song is about how a sinner cannot escape God's judgment. And it kind of resembles these Western themes that are here present in this trailer, specifically in the scene where Jesus is turning over the tables in the temple, clearly inspired at least one shot where Jesus is holding the whip close to the end, kind of almost like a pistol duel that you would see in a popular Western show. It's a showdown, it's a face-off, and really cool that they're kind of drawing in this inspiration here and these vibes. And if we look right here at the Pharisees, you can see something very important here. You can see actually Nicodemus is back in The Chosen Season 5. That's right. Nicodemus, who we've been waiting for since Season 1. We don't know where he was, or we just kept making excuses for him not being there, but we finally see him here. He's going to return in The Chosen Season 5. And this is a really exciting. This is all we get in this trailer. It's just a little hint, but we know at least that he's coming back, and that is exciting, and that's all we need to get super hyped. So that's awesome. That's probably the coolest part of this trailer, honestly.
Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees!
And then Jesus gives the woe to the scribes and the Pharisees. This is from Matthew 23. He says this to the Pharisees here, and this is going to be a long, drawn-out scene, the longest scene that The Chosen has ever had, actually, where Jesus is debating here with the Pharisees here in this scene after he turns over the tables. And there's this long debate that ensues between them. And then Yusuf says,
"The world is changing, and Jesus offers a vision to redeem it."
We see clips of Jesus at this wedding here as well, which we've seen this scene. The Chosen released it on Christmas Day. Jesus goes to this wedding to kind of cool off and lay off some steam after he just did this big event, and now he's trying to relax and lay low. And in this scene, someone recognizes him, and they all hail him as the Messiah, and he's kind of reminded of what he's here to do. But then Shmuel says, "He's not the Messiah!" which is kind of echoing this really sad turn that's happened with Shmuel. Oh, Shmuel, we really wanted you to go to Jesus, and he just didn't. I mean, it just hasn't happened, and we can see now that Shmuel is turning away, and he's not actually believing that Jesus is the Messiah. So it's one of the saddest parts of the show, but I don't know what'll happen to Shmuel by the end of it. Then we see Jesus kind of watching over Jerusalem, and then we see these clips of the triumphal entry, which is going to be the beginning of Season 5, Episode 1, because Season 4 just barely left off on a cliffhanger of Jesus just descending down the Mount of Olives to go into Jerusalem, and that's where it ended. So we've been stuck on this cliff for a year, and now we finally get to climb down off of it. And the Pharisee says to Jesus,
Declaring yourself a sovereign. Rome
will descend on us all.
This is right after, like during the triumphal entry, the Pharisees stop Jesus before he goes into Jerusalem, and then they continue on into the city. Then we see the Romans arresting someone. This is possibly Barabbas, and someone gets punched in the face here in this scene. A really quick shot, but we can't see who it is, and I can't really make it out. But you can see a character off to the side, has a bracelet on, maybe a zealot, and the person who gets punched has a knife. So I'm thinking kind of maybe Barabbas or one of Simon the Zealot's friends from season 3, episode 6, I believe, where we never really got a name for, but maybe he turns out to be Barabbas, and one of these zealots is the one who gets arrested and becomes the man next to Jesus, who's in the trial. Then we get the Romans burning the temple, and one of these Romans is, in fact, our one and only Dallas Jenkins making his first appearance in the show. Because if you didn't know, Dallas Jenkins actually makes a cameo in all of his projects. So I was kind of waiting to see where he's going to pop up in The Chosen, and he pops up as this Roman here, descending down the steps and then stabbing one of the Pharisees. And this scene is really interesting. It's the Romans burning the temple. And this is something that I don't think is going to be something that happens in the Chosen's timeline. It's going to be a flash forward. And Jesus actually predicts this event of the Romans burning down the temple in John 2:19, and it's later used against him in Matthew 26:61. Maybe this is something that Jesus references in the show, and then we actually get a glimpse of what that would look like. Or this is a metaphor for when Jesus says that his body will be destroyed and then raised up in 3 days, comparing it to the temple, and the Pharisees got confused on what he was talking about. Maybe this will be like a visual representation of that. I don't really know, but it is super interesting that we see this actually a lot in the trailer, this particular instance. That's probably going to be a pretty significant scene here in The Chosen Season 5. But hey, before we continue, if you like what you see here, I've got breakdowns and reviews and discussions of everything relating to The Chosen. So this is your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's happening in The Chosen world, updates, news, all of it's right here. If you want to stay tuned, make sure you subscribe. And comment down below. What do you think of this trailer? What do you think about The Chosen Season 5? I want to hear all that good stuff. Let me know down below. Then we get Atticus telling Pilate about the Pharisees' plot.
The Pharisees are plotting to arrest Jesus of Nazareth.
And then we get the shot of Simon and Big James coming through these doors to where they're going to be staying, I think, before they go up into the upper room for the Last Supper. So that's actually really interesting. I'm excited to see what this place is. This contains the place where Jesus goes with John, their little secret hiding place, as mentioned in the Chosen scene with Jesus and Judas. We actually get a little glimpse of Jesus and John here later in the trailer. So this place, I don't know, there's a statue in it, and there's these waterfalls and fountains, and I don't know what this place is going to be, but it's definitely going to be a place where they stay for the Passover, somehow related to the upper room. And then we get these disciples in the upper room watching Barabbas get arrested. I think this is going to be Barabbas who gets arrested here. It's definitely someone getting arrested by the Romans, as we see Atticus like kind of enforces it. So the disciples can kind of see that here from the upper room, and it probably puts a lot of them on edge as they're wondering if maybe Jesus is next. Pilate says,
I want peace, just like you.
And then the disciples are kind of watching the chaos of the turning of the tables happening, where the people are being driven out of Solomon's porch. They're all watching this chaos ensue. But Pilate says,
You go through with this. Our alliance is over.
and he just heard that Caiaphas is planning to arrest Jesus, and Pilate is clearly not happy about this. So this will be really interesting to see how The Chosen portrays Pilate as kind of a passive character in all of this going on. Like, he just had all of this happen, and he just didn't really know how to deal with it. So he ended up sentencing Jesus to be crucified without really being in control of the situation. But we get Jesus in this shot here, which I believe to be in the Garden of Gethsemane. It definitely looks like the sun is setting. It's about to be evening time. Jesus is going here to pray alone. And this might even be where we get Jesus' high priestly prayer. But this is definitely the Garden of Gethsemane in my mind. And we see a shot of it later as well. Then we see the disciples at the Last Supper. We get voiceover saying,
There is talk of a collaborator from within of his own followers.
This is referring to Judas, who is about to betray Jesus, and the Pharisees are kind of discussing how maybe Judas could be of some help to them. But then we get the Watcher pulling this cart here, and he's walking by what looks like maybe even the temple, and it's really interesting. This is the Watcher. This is the character that we saw in Season 4, Episode 7, who was watching Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. And ever since then, we've been really curious as to who this guy is, because we didn't get his name and we don't know what his deal is or what's happening with him. So we've all really been curious to see who the Watcher is. The name of the fan base has given him, the Watcher. And director Dallas Jenkins says that we are going to get the identity of the Watcher in this season. This is a big deal for Chosen super fans. We've all been guessing and trying to figure out who this guy is, like Mark or Luke or one of the, I don't know, like we just don't know who this guy is. So we've been really trying to figure it out, and it seems like we're going to get the answer in Season 5. Then we get Jesus being walked through the crowd by John. He's kind of guiding him through the crowd. This is definitely after the triumphal entry, and the people are still, waving their arms and celebrating Jesus. So they're all praising him. So he's kind of walking through the temple, and this is going to be probably an intense scene, or I don't know, it's going to be really interesting. And Herod is saying to Caiaphas in a little, I don't know, I guess lunch chat that they're having.
If you succeed, I'll be the one left to pick up the pieces.
Go.
So this is kind of, The Chosen is really exploring all of the different religious and political implications of the crucifixion of Jesus. Someone who was one of the most popular people in the world at the time, because Rome was the biggest empire in the world. And most people throughout the Jewish culture and in the Roman provinces knew who this guy Jesus was. And the implications for killing him were massive. And this was really a debated subject between the decision to kill him from Caiaphas talking to the Roman officials. And just, it was a big political play here. And it was something that was huge in the realm of this time. So they're really leaning into the decisions leading up to that and how that plays out and how that's going to be a big deal and how it's really the ramifications of it are incredibly huge. Let me see a guy with a bag over his head being pulled into the temple. This might be Judas because he's being brought to Caiaphas because he says that he's going to betray Jesus, or maybe it's the Watcher, or maybe it's someone else. I don't know. I can't make out who this person is under this hood, but it's going to be really interesting to see who this is that's being brought into the temple here. Then we see Jesus with the women here. We see Eden, Mary, Tamar, Mary Magdalene, and Mary Mother, and all the Marys and the women here, and Jesus is having dinner with them. And this is probably going to be early on in the season because Jesus says,
Ask that you keep your distance from me in Jerusalem these next few days.
Obviously referring to the fact that he's going to be in a lot of danger, and he's kind of warning them.
Why?
Sinner.
That's going to be a really interesting scene where Jesus is having dinner with the women here. Then we get Judas pulling his cloak over his head, and the words on the screen say, "The table is set." The trailer really kicks into high gear here, and we get a lot of really fast clips that we're going to go through. We get the Watcher grabbing Mary. This is that mystery character from Season 4, Episode 7. We're still trying to figure out who that is, but maybe in this scene is where we're going to get that answer. We get another shot of Jesus definitely at the Garden of Gethsemane, in my opinion. That's what it looks like to me. And then we get Jesus making his whip, because for the turning of the tables, it wasn't just something that Jesus did spontaneously. He had to go and see it, and then maybe that's the scene where Jesus is standing on the rooftop looking over and seeing all of the corruption. And then he goes home and makes a whip, and it looks like the next day he comes in and then drives out everyone from the temple. And this scene is kind of what I'm talking about. We get these shots in Solomon's porch where we're looking at all of the monetary purposes that are going on in Solomon's temple, all of the buying and selling and all of the corruption. And this is from Jesus' perspective as he's on this rooftop here looking over and seeing it. Then we get voiceover here of Jesus saying,
You serpents! How will you escape being condemned to hell?
This is again from Matthew 23 where he's shouting at the Pharisees. This scene is going to be really intense and really cool to see. I can't wait to see how this plays out after Jesus turns over the tables and then he's having this really heated argument with the Pharisees. And you could see in Jonathan's acting here that he is getting really upset. So it's going to be awesome. Then we get another shot of the Romans destroying the temple yet again. We get the Pharisees all getting up to pray in the temple. We get this shot of Mary Magdalene crying. We get the shot of John and Jesus. And this is what I was talking about earlier, where John and Jesus seems to be in like a private spot where they would go maybe to hang out or to discuss things. And this is what Jesus mentions in that scene that we got back in December of him and Judas that we talked about. We get Jesus kicking over a table, get the Romans again. Then we get what it looks like, I can't tell who this is, but it's two disciples, maybe Matthew and Philip even, and there's a third guy maybe behind them who looks like Andrew maybe, but they're hugging each other here in this place where there's the fountains and stuff like that. And then we get the shot of the Romans blowing up the temple, which is really interesting. Then we get Jesus kicking the tables again, and then
What have you done?
we get this really cool shot of looks almost like mirroring a Western shootout with a gun, maybe that a cowboy would have, looking at his opponents.
Sooner or later, gotta cut you down.
That is how we end The Chosen's Last Supper trailer. So there you have it. There is my breakdown of everything that you missed in this trailer, all of the little details, all of the little Easter eggs, and all of the clues that we get for how things are going to unfold in this incredibly amazing season. I mean, I just can't wait for The Chosen Season 5. It's going to knock your socks off. But let me know what you think of this trailer down below in the comments, as always. And if you're not subscribed already, make sure you subscribe. And this trailer was epic. It was definitely probably The Chosen's best trailer, in my opinion. I loved every second of it. It's so epic. It's so big. And yet you can see the glimpses of those intimate moments as well, where we get those character moments that are going to be really, really special and emotional. So that's going to be exciting. I can't wait to see this season. It's going to be incredible. So make sure you check it out in theaters, and then coming to Amazon Prime after it's in theaters, and then coming to the Chosen app later this year. So super exciting stuff happening. I just can't wait for all of it. So I will see you guys in my next video.